Today, our webinar is on influencer PR and marketing, hosted by Zoe Griffin. We'll have the presentation from Zoe first, and then we'll have some time for questions at the end. Zoe has been working in digital marketing and PR for over 10 years, and she's managed influencer campaigns for a variety of companies, including Pretty Little Thing and Simply Be. So she's very well qualified to host today's talk. So I'll hand over to you now, Zoe.
Thank you. And sorry again, I was late, but hopefully it'll be worth the wait, okay? So I just wanted to start with basically saying why I'm taking this masterclass today. As Anna said, I've got more than 10 years experience in social media, content marketing and influencer marketing. I work with like very.co.uk, Evans, Simply Be, JD Williams, some hair salons, and also like a sports tech device called Incus. How I got into it was completely bizarre, but I just basically rode the wave. So in 2009, I was a gossip columnist at the Sunday Mirror, a tabloid newspaper. There used to be like 3 AM girls on the weekdays, and on the weekend, on Sunday, it was the Zoe column. And I love that. You know, like I went to the Oscars, I went to like the Cannes Film Festival, had an amazing life, but I realized no one is actually reading newspapers. So I'm basically doing this for like no reason. That's what I felt like. People were like, you know, starting to get into blogs in 2009, and all they really cared about was what people were wearing that day. So I quit my job and I started a blog called Live Like a VIP, and it was all about how to live a celebrity lifestyle for less. And because my own, you know, it was my own blog, I wasn't getting paid for it. I had to make it a success. So back in the day, how you can make it a success, if you can get traffic to the blog, you can sell advertising space. So I basically used influencer marketing, even though it wasn't the term influencer marketing, to make my own blog successful. So I got Perez Hilton, I got Go Fuck Yourselves and Lainey Gossip, other bloggers, to promote my blog, and then it worked and the traffic grew. And so after that, I was invited to like the Cannes Film Festival again to meet Brad Pitt, and I got invited under my own name as Zoe Griffin and not just a Sunday Mirror journalist. And you can monetize that through affiliate sites. So I suggested clothes from Topshop and ASOS as a way of copying celebrities and designer outfits, and then you get like 10% or 8% of what people buy. In 2012, Live Like a VIP, my blog, was named Blog of the Year by Cosmopolitan magazine. You know, and I guess I was kind of like doing influencer before the term was invented. And following the awards, very.co.uk hired me to create and launch their blog, and they wanted to start it and to make it popular, just like Live Like a VIP. So I started their like social media channels, and I basically got the blog noticed because I collaborated with fashion influencers, people that were more kind of influential than the Very blog, which didn't really have much traffic because nobody knew about it. So for example, if someone did a post about Very, we'll give them free clothes. And then obviously Very got bigger, and they sponsored the X Factor. So then I got to interview all the contestants. And when I did interviews with One Direction, their Twitter really took off because One Direction tweeted about the interview, and then everyone went to the Very Twitter and followed it. So basically I saw again the power that influencers have to completely transform a brand, and you know, to make something really popular. And so I've basically written two books about it: Get Rich Blogging and Get Rich Vlogging. And I promoted them through people who are influencers. So Louis Smith and other people, I just got photos of them reading the book to kind of like maximize a campaign that all the celebrities are reading this book and other people should read it too. And so I'm going to share my tips with you today. I'm going to share how to find influencers, how to pitch to influencers, and how to measure it, and how to repurpose content as testimonials and testimonial news stories. So you don't just get the reach in terms of views and you know, like engagement to the client. You can also use it in kind of like traditional media campaigns, and get like print coverage or other online media coverage out of working with influencers.
Sorry to interrupt, Zoe. Would you mind just putting the presentation onto present mode, and then we can see it kind of full screen?
Oh yeah, which ones? How do you do that then?
If you go, there should be a bit at the bottom where you can just select that you'll be presenting.
Oh no, I don't think I can see that. At the bottom of where?
I think it's the bottom right hand corner. Sorry, I can't see it because it's covered by my Zoom.
Bottom right hand corner of what? Of the PowerPoint?
Yeah, so it's just next to the kind of where you zoom in and out. It's just to the left of that. There's a little icon you can select, and it
Is
will
that it?
put you onto slideshow. Yes,
Is
that's
that
it.
it?
Great.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Okay, yeah, I'm not really like, I haven't done much teaching.
No, that's
So
okay. Just slightly bigger for us to see now. Thank you.
yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad you can see it better. So yeah, so now I'm covering like, to start at the beginning, we have to start the basics. So I wanted to start with finding influencers, because obviously that's key. You need to find someone to work with. So influencers can be divided into like mega influencers, so people that reach more than 1 million people with their posts. But the downside to that is that the engagement rates aren't always that amazing, so people might not buy from them. So for example, Bill Gates, he only his engagement rate is only like 0.025, even though he has 40 million followers. So mega influencers, if you do work with them, you need to calculate the engagement rates. Macro influencers, they have more than 100,000 followers, and they have like experience in multiple topics. And then obviously micro influencers, people that have from like 1,000 to 100,000 followers, and they normally get the highest authentic engagement. In fact, their engagement rate isn't much below macro influencers, and they tend to be a lot cheaper. So that's why I'm saying, like, a lot of the time it's best to work with micro influencers rather than say macro or mega, because you can get more out of it. So for example, if you have like an uber famous influencer, you say you've got a Molly Mate, a Pretty Little Thing, you've got Mrs. Hinch and say like a home brand or something, or like Meghan Markle before she became like royalty, work with SmartWorks. It is good because you can obviously like get interview time with the influencer as part of the deal. So as well as getting their post on social media, on like Instagram and TikTok and whatever other media is part of the deal, you can say, okay, if you've got part of the deal is like to have half an hour chat with like the likes of like say the Telegraph or another online publication, so you can get hits out of it that way. And you know that the media publications are always interested in that celebrity because they're mega famous, so that will mean that you get more out of it, but obviously it's going to be more expensive. And then, so macro and micro influencer campaign examples, you can use like cheaper or free influencers and you get more storyline, you get more momentum. So I put there like Brooks did a Run Happy Crew event where they got like lots of influencers together all on one day, and they all went for a run and got free stuff, but everyone posted on their own individual channels, and it looked like there's kind of a momentum going on. And when you add up all the different posts from all those influencers, it adds up to quite a lot. Berry Garden quite randomly had a fitness challenge, and they invited loads of influencers down to do their fitness challenge, and I think they invited some members of the media too, so they got like influencer like outreach and also like media outreach in the same event. And then Gymshark, they're one of the best obviously at micro influencers because they have so many influencers working for them. Some of them are just unpaid in exchange for like free product and free things, but it's constantly like flowing. And also like they have a Gymshark HQ that they invite like media and influencers down on the same day, and that reaches more people. And actually sometimes the online influencers like meeting the traditional press, and the traditional press, they're fascinated by influencers, so it works well for everyone. And you can use it in the same event, so then you're like saving money by not having like a different influencer event and a different press event. And then when you want to find influencers, I always think you should ask yourself, what's the end goal? Because working with influencers is time consuming. There's a lot of to-in and fro-in, and you have to like constantly massage the ego or check if they're going to post about something. So you don't want to start that process and work with someone who doesn't even end up benefiting you at all. So you have to ask yourself who's the right fit for the brand, and you have to ask yourself what the brand's audience like doing and who do they genuinely follow online, and then make a short list. And then when you're presenting it to your PR client, I would always say offer the client some choices. Maybe like if they want to work with like 2 influencers, offer them about 10. And don't ask for their wish list, because it'll be impossible. Because if you talk to a lot of clients about social media, they don't really understand what they're working with. They might be getting into it the first time, so they'll probably go for like the most famous person they've ever heard of, which is like you're unlikely to deliver. And even if you did, it would cost a lot of money, and then they'll be disappointed. So obviously never promise what you can't deliver and be realistic. So start lower, and then you can like, you know, impress people that way. It's better to start small and then deliver, like, you know, like deliver some sales from it, because at the end of the day with the influencers, the brands can see the traffic from the website, so they can see like if the traffic came from Instagram, and they can also see sales. So if even if you start with someone with a low number of followers, if that post goes up and the client sees like a lot of traffic to their website and they see a lot of sales, then that is like obviously a bonus, and then they can like start thinking bigger and start scaling it up. If you started obviously really high and you gave them the world at the beginning, then you can't scale it up. So I always think, again, it's better to start micro and get people posting about it that are good and they have a good engagement rate, and then you can like start by thinking about like paying people more money. And the way to find them, sometimes you can find them on Google. So you can put like, you know, top Instagram beauty influencers on there. This is the basic way, the free way of finding it. There are other ways, don't worry. And then if you go to the advanced search in Google, it narrows down your way of finding them. Here we go. So from the advanced search, you can go into the update section. So you can go for people that are more active. You can search from region, and then I would say obviously look from the first 3 to 5 pages, because if they're, I mean, you know, I'm being generous here by saying go to 3. You'll find the best influencers on the first 1 to 3 pages. And then you can also like put in like Instagram. So if you narrow it down by Instagram, so you can say like Instagram K followers, and that will show users with more than 1,000 followers. And then you can narrow it down even more. So you can put K followers, site Instagram.com event planner, and then it'll show you like event planners on Instagram that have more than 1,000 followers. So it's just basically a way of, you don't have to go on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok to find people that are influential on it. You can actually find them on Google at the same time. If you want to find them on Instagram, you can find them through hashtags. So you can think about all hashtags that are relevant to the brand. And then I would say you should go to the website called allhashtag.com, and then you can get 30 more relevant hashtags. And then if you put the hashtag in the search box, it will come back with the top post based on that hashtag. And then you can look at people who created those posts and find out if any of them are relevant fit for your brand. Look at where they're based. Are they based in your country, first of all? And do they have good engagement rates? And do they have any other profiles like TikTok, YouTube, and LinkedIn? Because that is always a bonus. It's all very well having someone with a big Instagram following, but if they don't have anything else, then it's not as good value for your brand as if they have a good Instagram and a good TikTok. And then we get through to the software. So if you don't want to do like, you don't want to scroll through Google, you don't want to scroll through Instagram, you can actually use software that will tell you who the best influencers are. And there are a number of options because they're paid for. So you've got Upfluence, I quite like that one, it's quite easy to use. Spark, Toro, Heapsy, Brandbassador, I will link them in the presentation, and the presentation will go up on the blog afterwards. So you can click through from this presentation to the direct sites. You've got like Aspire IQ, Group High, Tribe, IZEA, and Clear. They all basically do the same job, just cost different amounts of money, and some are easier to work than the others. So I suggest, like, if you go to the blog afterwards and click through the links, you can see if you like the look of anyone and they're within your budget or the client's budget if they like to pay. So $49 a month is Heapsy, and it's one of the cheapest softwares available. And you can add in keywords relevant to your niche, and then it will pull up all the bloggers based, not bloggers, the TikTok and social media. So you can search by Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, and it'll pull up everyone who's relevant in that niche. So you can like filter by followers from 5k to 1 million. You can narrow it down to from between 5k and 10k. You can even like search for the box like whether they're Instagram verified or not. And they even have an estimated cost, but sometimes the estimate is way off. So it's always better to like do your own deals and not go by the estimates. But it's nice to know if you want to put a figure on it before you price up how much you're going to spend on your campaign. But yeah, Heapsy is quite good because it is cheap. There's no minimum commitment, and you can easily find someone very quickly. You can find a list of everyone that's a good fit depending on the followers and depending on what niche they're in. And it helps you in your location, because you don't want like a lot of American people if you're based in the UK. There is one free search tool called Start Engage. It only works on Instagram, but again, it is free, so you get what you pay for, or what you don't pay for. So you can, again, find an influencer on Start Engage, and you can put in what niche you're working with, and you can also filter by location as well. So check it out if you're struggling to find people, even if you think you know who you might want to work with, so you have an idea of a really famous ultra influencer in mind, it's still a good idea to look around, because you might miss out on someone that you didn't know about, but probably a lot of followers of the brand do know about, and they might be a really good fit, and you might have a really good long-term relationship with them, and they're not as massive as the Uber influencers. So you might not have heard them, but when you do find them, they fit perfectly. So when you're approaching an influencer, it's always a good idea to be perfectly clear what you're asking them to do and what the reward is for them. Otherwise, they're going to think you are not serious, or you're wasting their time. And influencers sometimes can get a lot of requests, so the clearer the better, and the more rewards the better. So when you're working out, cash, do you want to give them some cash in terms of their payment, or do you want to give some cash, i.e. free goods? If you do give them cash, there are some benefits, because you've got more control about what you're asking them to post. It'll be done by a specific date, and there's no stress, so you don't need to worry, will they post or won't they post, because they have to post on a certain date. And you can also control the content direction, because you're paying for it. So you can do like hashtag campaigns like Chiquita Bananas. So they got loads of different people to like draw a face on the bananas, and they tagged it Dress My Chiquita, and it all came out on the same date. And then if you do it with several influencers at once, it has the potential to go viral. And then if it goes viral, hopefully it will make mainstream media too, like Mail Online, Independent, like quirky things in there. If you're giving away like stash, then you have lower overheads, well, the brand does, and then the brand can afford to use more influencers, because you're not spending all your budget on one or two. And then it's easy for the brand to fulfill. So the brand just has to ship a few products. There's no invoicing afterwards. So you don't have to go through the influencer and say, okay, you pass your invoice onto the like the brand, or do it through the PR company, but someone still has to pay them. So there's still more. If you're doing it through your own company and then getting the brand to pay them, can get quite complicated. So you need to work out how you're going to do that beforehand, just so it doesn't get complicated when you're talking to the influencer. And if you do have giving away free product, sometimes it can actually look quite good, because then it's authentic. So you're giving them control of the content, and then it fits their feed, and then it's more like, it could result in more sales, because people are believing that the influencer likes the product, it's part of their lifestyle, and the people that are influenced by that influencer, they want what that influencer has got and what that influencer generally likes. And then you can also suggest that there's an affiliate promotion, and give them a code for their followers, and they earn commission on posts, and then they're more likely to post more. And then obviously the more they post, and the more reach you get, which is better numbers. Okay, so you have to slide into the DMs. I do think that obviously two ways of doing it: one, direct message, and one, email. If they don't have their email on their profile, then DM is the way to go. And I would always suggest warming up people. So don't go into their DMs until they know who you are. So for at least 2 weeks before, like and comment on everything they do, and definitely comment, because they're more likely to see it if you comment. And set push notifications to your phone. So if you go on the Instagram app, you can and when you go onto their profile, you can set push notifications, so you know exactly when they posted stories or posts. Go on to set everything and go and like it, because you really want them to work with them, so they have to notice you. And you can even share one of their posts to your stories with a comment about why you love it, or why you love the influencer. Like, flattery gets you everywhere, I think, with influencers. They want to be liked. That is their job. They need to be liked. That's how they get their money. So if you show that you like them and you're interested by their content, then you'll get noticed. And then once you've warmed them up, then the influencer will know who you are. So when you approach them, they're more likely to be receptive to your message. And also, ideally, you want them to be following you, because if they're not following you, your messages will go into their spam, their request folder, and not everyone checks their request folder. So ideally, you want them to follow you back. So you go into their main inbox. If they don't follow you back, it's not the end of the world, because you've warmed them up. So you can just reply on reply on one of their future posts. Did you get my message? It might be in your request folder as a comment. And if you do slide into the DMs as opposed to write an email, you don't have to worry about the message going into the email spam folder. You can keep things short and sweet. And short and sweet sometimes is quite enticing. I would say there's no point in writing a long pitch as your first pitch, because it's just boring and it looks like a bot's done it sometimes. And it's easy to come up with a simple template that you can use to message multiple influencers. So you've got more success that one wants to work with you. Like sometimes, that's why I say write a list of 10 people if you want, like, say 1 or 2 to work with you, because not everyone can. It doesn't matter. It's like a numbers game. You'll find someone that is a good fit eventually if you just keep going. So a simple template could be something like, hey, I hope you're having a good week or weekend. I love that specific content you share. So they know that you're not a bot. They know that you're like coming from like you're a real person or coming from a real company. And I'm coming from blah, 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 to see if we can collaborate on something. Let me know if you're interested. It's not like you're one of these spam messages that says, hey, I'm an ambassador for such and such jewelry label, want jewelry, contact me. That is clearly a bot. This one looks a bit this one looks more real and genuine because you mentioned something they've done recently, and it's short and sweet. And also you haven't given too much away by saying collab. It kind of entices them into replying because they don't know what they're going to get. It could be anything. So they're more likely to reply to you if you say collab rather than if you give everything away in the first message. And then always follow up. Just because they didn't get back to you doesn't mean they don't like you. It probably means they haven't seen it. So send a follow-up message if they don't reply within 3 days or so, and just say hi, just following up to see if you want some freebies. Again, that's enticing. It doesn't mean that you can't give them money too. It just means that like it's, you're not giving anything away. Freebies could mean anything. All we need is an address. Let me know. It's quite friendly. And hopefully it'll entice them to get back. And also comment on every photo they post in the meantime. Don't just stop commenting because you send the DM. Keep commenting, keep liking. And if they didn't still haven't replied to you, just comment on a post asking if they saw the DMs. Because influencers normally reply to comments. It might take them ages, but most influencers always reply to their comments. So just keep going if they don't reply to you. And say if you do get a no, it doesn't really matter because not everyone's going to say no. And if you don't want to do DMs, that's fair enough, because emails can look more professional and you can go into more detail about your product and the brand story, and it's less spammy, and it has more chance of being seen if the influencer isn't following you. So you can just come up with a simple template like this. Hey, my name is blah, blah, blah. I follow Instagram. I wanted to see if you're interested in collaborating with us, and then take a look at our page and direct them to the brand's page and see if we'll be a good fit for the content. And then the influencer knows who you are, how you found them and what you want, and you're not overwhelming them with information, so it leaves them wanting more. If you overwhelm people, you give away too much at the beginning, then I think you're just after things yourself and there's nothing in it for them. So you just want to keep reeling them in by keep being cool, and when you want to seal the deal, remember, it's about them, it's not about you. So what are you proposing that's of value to them? Are you offering them the chance to try a new fashion or beauty before anyone else? Are you offering them something that solves a problem? So their yoga mat looks awful, so you'll give them a new one. You've seen that already on their content. Are you offering something that improves their life? So they might think they look good, but you might be offering them the chance to try some new flattering like clothes. Obviously don't say they look rubbish, but you can say that it's more bum lifting or whatever. And you can offer them money in exchange for posts. Are you offering them more exposure, or are you inviting them to a fun networking event where they can meet useful people, or 3 or 4 of the above? And then if you summarize all the benefits in a short email message to them following the initial interest that they've expressed, then you're more likely to get a reply. So when drafting the email, always put about the benefits. If it's not about a benefit to them, think about whether you need to include it in that message at all, because all they're really interested in is how it's going to help them. They don't really care about the brand too much. They want to know about how it will benefit their life. And don't mention money unless they do, if you're working with micro influencers, because you give them these other benefits to them. I think when people are new to working with influencers, they automatically assume that influencers want a lot of money. But I do honestly think that the influencers that I've worked for brands like sports brands like Meglio, when very first started off. Even like when I was working with until recently, like a lot of the micro influencers would do it in exchange for coming to the event and getting some free fashion. You know, it's only the bigger ones that need paying, and if you can find out something that benefits them in another way, then it doesn't automatically mean that you need to give them any cash at all, because there are other ways you can work with them. And I think that until people get to a certain level in the size of their influencer network, they can't really expect money for a post anyway, because that is mainly for the people with like huge followings. So never mention money unless they do, because I always think like there's no point otherwise. Why spend more than you have to? That money can be spent in other ways, on influencer marketing software and reporting, for example. So I would say you don't need to mention money unless they do, because you're still offering them things. And then obviously when you're doing, when you've done the influencer marketing, you've given them the free stuff, you've got the posts, that is the easy bit. Like once you've reeled them in and you've got them to post, then it's time to measure how well it did. You can always ask me any questions if you've got any questions about like doing the actual work, but I'm going to show you. So basically I've linked this in my slide. There was like a link to it, and then they'll come up with make a copy of the document, and then I've basically like put like a copy of like a report that you can use to present how much traffic and how much how many photos that the post the influencer got. So I always recommend like just doing a brief introduction to what working with influencers was like. So for example, like growing traffic, strategy, tactics and success metrics. And then I recommend doing a success snapshot, because then people who might not read the whole report can see in a nutshell some of the key figures, like how many influencers you worked with, the total reach of the influencers, the engagements from the influencers, and the website visits. Now, in terms of engagements, that's easy to see because you can see that on their profile. You can see likes, comments, and you can see that's what helps you do the engagement. So likes and comments. Website visits, you can see that your end as well, or you might have to ask the client for that. Total reach, that is the only one you can't get yourself. You can obviously estimate it by putting in the followers of, you can just put in the followers of the influencer, or when you do the campaign with the influencer, you can ask them to share their Instagram insights. So you can ask them to share how many people it reached. Most of them are quite happy to do that and be transparent, because if especially if it's a good post, there's nothing, there's no harm in it to them. If they're honest with the amount of followers they get, then they'll be happy to show you how much it reached. And then you can go on to give some examples. So you can say, you can put into what the post URL was, the influencer following, the reach, the comments, and the story views. You have to ask them for story views, you have to ask them for post reach, but you can definitely do the following, the likes and the comments. If you don't have the other information, it still looks good, still enough numbers. And then I would say like show them some of the user generated content in the report, because it looks good and they can see that people are engaging with the brand and what kind of comments they're making, and what kind of comments the people that see the posts are thinking too. Because if the influencer posts something and then everyone else looks like, wow, that's amazing, that's so cool, then it's really good feedback that shows that people like the brand and they think it's cool. And then it goes on to, that's for Instagram, and it basically goes on to do the same for TikTok and for Facebook. And then again, if you use a specific hashtag for a campaign, so for example, you were doing like a beauty brand and you use the campaign like lipstick, or red lipstick or something, yeah. And then you can look and see, well, obviously when you live there, that's not a unique campaign, that's a branded hashtag. So if you came up with like red lipstick Zoe, and you can see how many people have posted about red lipstick Zoe, and you can put that as like a table and show how well that kind of hashtag did. Again, for Facebook and YouTube, if you're doing it across multiple campaigns. And I guess, yeah, I did realize that, you know, like once you reel someone in, I didn't really go cover too much of the, you know, like getting them to post. But again, I mean, that is very similar to traditional PR, whereas they've got the product, you just basically have to keep telling them, you have to keep reminding them that you exist. So if you don't see anything about it within, like, you know, like a week or so, you'll be just checking in with them and keep liking their posts in the meantime, and checking with them up, you know, like after another week. This is especially the more you need to check with them more if you don't give them any, obviously, contract. If you do give them a contract, then that is easy enough, isn't it? Because you'll give them the date they need to post, you'll give them the you know, like the compensation for them in exchange for posting, and you can coordinate it by, you know, like by telling the press that this person's posting on a certain date, doing an interview on a certain date, and you can basically like use your media contacts to either do a, you know, a news story about such and such working with you, or that, or the client, or yeah, or basically like, you know, inviting them to the event that you've in their contract they have to show up to. So yeah, so basically, like in terms of stash, you have to be really on it to get them to post, and in terms of yeah, and cash, you just have to control the contract and make sure everything you want is in that contract and they do everything you say. It's basically like cash is obviously like a bit like an editorial, you know, like in a magazine where you give them, they give, you know, a page costs like £2,000 or £5,000 or whatever, their journalist writes it, they send it back to you for approval, you approve it, then, you know, then it gets on the page and you approve the proof of the page. It's kind of like that, say for when you give an influencer money, and then when you give the influencer just product, it's like when you give like the magazine journalist like the new lipstick or like the new face serum, or you come, they can choose some items from the collection, and then you have to like make sure that they post. And sometimes you might want the item back if it's like an expensive tech item, so you have to obviously be you can, you know, loan it to them. Like some of the devices that I used for my sports tech brand, we made it very clear at the beginning they were just on loan for a certain amount of time, and that we wanted them back, say for example after 6 months. And you know, it was a bit scary at the beginning saying, okay, these are on loan, because we'd be like, okay, why do people want to work with us for 6 months? But then if you find the right people who really like sport, or some people that really, really like fashion, they'll just want to try everything. So for some influencers, influencing is like a business machine, right? They'll only do anything for money. But you get the other influencers that have maybe like a job actually in their other time, and they just really, really like fashion, or they really, really like beauty, and then you'll give them a product that no one else has, and you're helping them raise their profile. And eventually one day they might step away from their job and do beauty or fashion full time, but in the meantime they're not, and so they're more open to doing things that aren't just for money. So yeah, so basically if I have skipped over that a bit, that was just my way of explaining, like once you've got them, you reel them in, how the kind of like day-to-day management goes. And I would say like it is time consuming, which is why you want to work with some really good people. You know, like I've worked with like athletes for like sports brand, and I've worked with like fashion people, and they're busy, like they've got a lot of other brands contacting them, so you need to basically make sure that you are always in the inbox, because if you're not, someone else will be. And normally it's down to like the more persistent person that they don't forget about is the one that gets the better coverage. And even again, when people, when I was doing that blogging, that would be the work for me. So for example, like someone might send me some clothes and it might be really amazing, but then I forget about it. But then someone sends me some average clothes and they keep going on and on at me, I'm more likely to post. It's sad, but it has to be done. And it has to swallow all shame, because it doesn't matter, because you're getting your coverage at the end of the day, and that's all that matters. And then I'll go back to the slides now, because I've done come back to the copy, go back to the slides. Yeah, so you've seen the template, and then repurposing content. So I thought I'll put a nice slide of me and Khloe Kardashian up there from back in the day, because that is an example of when Khloe Kardashian and the Kardashians teamed up with Lipsy. And what they did was they brought the media together and influencers together for an experience. So they held a party at, I think it was like the Natural History Museum, or it could have been the V&A. And obviously Khloe went, she did some interviews with the media. Back in the time I was a journalist, and I did some interviews with her, but there were also loads and loads of influencers there just to like take photos of the event. And again, kind of like the influencers are graded. So like some of the best influencers, they got like interview time with her too, so they could post more about that. But some of the micro influencers just got invited to the party and they could just do posts about the party. And the other ways you can repurpose content is you can use the image like as a press image. So, you know, you take some good, if the influencer takes some, is really good with their camera, they can take some great images and you can use those. Obviously you need to like ask for the copyright, don't forget to do that, but you can, you know, request that they give you some the copyright, and then you can use them as a press image, or on the brand social media, or even like, you know, as a testimonial on your own website to show what you can do for clients. You can use it influence a testimonial in the media too. So if they're looking for case studies, you know, like a tooth whitening brand or something, and an influence works, then that influence could then be like a case study. And then obviously an Uber influencer like Khloe Kardashian, you can use her for interviews with the media, or host an event. And then another way to repurpose content is you can like host an event, bringing micro influencers and media together for a shared experience. And that means you don't have to do anything extra, because if you're a fashion brand, you're probably having a Christmas showcase already. So just add some influencers to the guest list and keep in touch with them and see what happens. And then you can also make a news story out of it. So if you have a beauty brand and then someone's coming in for a treatment, you can like take the photos, obviously set the photos up so they look good, and then send them to the men online or something like that. So there are lots of ways that you can use the influencer for traditional press. And so for summary, I would say it can lead to great things. People have like made great success out of it, and I think anyone could do it. It just requires persistence. I would say it's really important to set your goals, so what you're trying to achieve, who you're trying to work with. Definitely manage expectations. Do never ask the client who the ideal influence is, because it will always be someone you can't get. Get creative. You know, like find an influencer that they might not have heard of, using something like Heapsy or using Google or using the Instagram search tool, and act cool. You know, like as cool as you can. Like obviously you're going to flash them loads, but don't give everything away. Like if you say, I really want to collab with you and I want to give you free jewelry and I want to invite you to a party and I want to do this, people are like, whoa, that's too crazy. You know, like if you're going to a party, you say like, hi, how are you? You don't just say, hi, my name is Zoe and I really like this and I really like that. It just puts people off. So when you're approaching people, act cool. Choose a network carefully. Again, don't work with anyone that you don't think is a good fit for the brand, because it would be too time consuming. And again, I didn't really mention that too much, but I think make sure you get some video posts as well as still posts, because the numbers are likely to be higher, and it's and you know, we all like the numbers, and also it's good for the brand to repurpose on their own social media, but mainly the video thing is for the numbers, because you can show more reach with it. And if you can show more reach and you know, more engagement, then clients like the numbers, because they're higher. So if there's ever a choice between doing video and doing stills, I'd always ask my influencers to do video because it's more engaging. And I guess yeah, I have kind of like come up to the end, but let me see. Oh, hang on, I've got like the questions. I can ask some more questions, so everyone can type some more questions in. I've got time for questions now. So I found one, and it said, we don't have influencers, but we have ambassadors of the brand that we would say fit the criteria to be someone that could influence people in the industry. We provide these people with products and keep close to them on what they're working on to see how we can fit into their roles. The main issue we have is, how do we use these people to our advantage without it making it seem like a job for them? Okay, so, okay, how do we use people advantage without it making it seem like, well, I think if they're genuinely working with your products, then it's not a job for them, because they're doing this anyway. So you're making their life easier. So for example, if you keep in touch with them and you're seeing what they're doing and you're suggesting ways that you can help them, then it really isn't a chore for them. You're actually helping them. Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely not, you know, it's not a job, and you just remind them to post. And I think sometimes if you can go to the extra effort of meeting with them, like in person, now we can meet with someone in person, then they'll feel more valued. So I do think that if you ever start to lose an influencer and you just can't get in contact with them, suggest like just going out for a drink or something, like meeting in the middle. You might have to travel a bit, but if you really want that person to work with you, then you have to do it. Like, then you really like just meet up with them in person and see what they want, and then they're happy to work with you because they like you. And I think liking someone is a very big part of working with someone. And I also think like it's good to have an individual touch. Like, even if you are from a big PR company, just be an individual, because people like to see the human side. Okay, thanks for a great session. Oh, thank you. Can I ask what your tips are for public sector organisations? We can't offer anything paid or gifted, but we want people to publicise our services. Yeah, so obviously that is harder, but so your public sector, you can appeal to people's good nature. So I would say, like a lot of people, they don't do anything from a social conscience point of view. So I guess you would need to like appeal to their like human side and say, put a post up on your own social media, and then say to people, is there any chance you can share this? It's a really good cause, and then lay out all the benefits of that cause. Like how many people you're helping, like how many people have seen, have engaged with the service, and like what it exists to do. Because even though you're not helping that person directly, you're appealing to their good side, and they'll feel valued by the fact they're helping someone. So I would say the tip is to think about what they would get out of supporting the public sector. They'll get the feel-good feeling knowing they're helping so many people. And if you make it easy for them, they're more likely to do it. So they might not like review a product, but they might be able to like reshare something that you've shared already. Or if you give them a template, they can just put it up on their stories. So just make it easy for them, because they might not have a lot of time because they're not getting paid and it's not free stuff. But if you appeal to their child plan, you make it easy, they're more likely to do it. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if it doesn't, and I can just answer it again. And then someone said, if you send out free products and the micro influencer said that they will record Insta videos and they go quiet once they receive the videos, once they receive the product, how do you get them to post? I would say that if you want to get them to post, you have to just keep going, because because the more you contact them, the more likely they are to like just get you to shut up when they'll post. I think people give up too easily when someone just ghosts them, but you can, you have to just keep going, like otherwise they're not going to post. And they've got the product, and then you can ask them why they didn't want it. You can ask them if they didn't get on with it, but just keep hassling them, like hassle them on their YouTube, hassle them on their LinkedIn, just keep hassling them, and eventually they'll either feel guilty and they'll say, okay, I'll send the product back, or they'll post about it. And I think if you keep in contact with them, they are going to post, because they just won't want to be bothered by you every single day until you get the answer that you want. If you don't have a contract, then you're not paying the people, then you do take a risk. But I think maybe like 8 or 9 times out of 10 they will post, and maybe like one time out of 10 they might not post. But you can just explain that was a one-off, and then lots of other people did, and just kind of like say, okay, it happens. It didn't work that time, but look at these 9 other people that did post, and then kind of mitigate it that way, because it wasn't your fault that they didn't post, it was them, it was a one-off. And so you just explain that to the client and they would understand too. Can you recommend any tool to track influencer digital marketing? Well, I don't know really. I mean, I think to track, it's very hard to see what their results are. If you're paying them for products, there's like this thing called AWIN, which is basically like you can see how they posted. But actually no, I do think there's a good app called Companion. Actually, I do recommend Companion. I've used for a different brand. It's called Companion, and it's quite new on the market. But it can basically, like, you can put in all the influencers you're working with. So you can put in, say, like 10 influencers, and it will tell you their combined reach and how many of them out of that 10 posted that month. And it'll tell you actually quite a lot of statistics. So it's not even that expensive. Companion is a good one, actually. I think everyone should look up Companion if they want for more tracking results. Then you don't have to ask influencers for the insights. But there are some insights you can see yourself. So you can see like the comments and likes and you can see like how many people, you know, how many people follow them. So there are some insights you can see, but look at companion for other ones. Do I follow a process to decide, how do I follow a process to decide the right person is the right fit, regardless of how big they are, active and aligned with the business? So yeah, like once I've figured out, like, you know, like how many followers they have they got, do they post about the right things? Then I look back at like maybe like a month's worth of content just to check again. And then ultimately kind of like the client and more people within the business have to have a say, because they're the ones that are you know, that are paying for it, or that need to be happy at the end of the day. So I think that if you ask like the CEO or the marketing person at the company a shortlist, so you give them 10 people and a couple of them reply, then that is the best way of doing it, because you know, like there could be some that are very similar, they could have a similar level of engagement, they could be a similar fit, but you can't afford them all. So at the end of the day, it has to come down to like a mutual decision between yourself and the client about who is the one you're going to work with. And then if it comes down to it, you ask them both, you know, if they want to do it, if you're not paying them. But if you are paying them, then it basically does come down to price as well. Like it'll be very interesting to offer the two people the same, you know, loosely pitch them if they would do it for the same cost. And if they would, then you have to obviously come up with the criteria of like, who do the people like more? I mean, to be honest, sometimes you could even put it out like as a you know, like as a story or something like that. You could ask the actual followers of the brand in a subtle way, who is your what influencers do you like? Well, we love such and such influencers on the story, and then put it in a poll, because at the end of the day as well, it's the viewers who are going to be influenced by someone, so you want to make sure you're picking the right person that they're being influenced by. So if you can come up with a clever way, because obviously if you can do it before you enter the conversation. So you can't be like in conversation with such and such an influencer and such an influencer and then put it to the public vote. But before you contact them, you can put it to the public vote. You can be saying like, we want to work, who do you think is cool? You know, like, we love all the influencers. Do you follow such and such? Do you follow such and such? Do you follow such and such? Because the followers will be honest. So even if you just get like 50% of 55% one and 45% the other, they'll still tip the scales, so you know who is going to align with the business better. So I hope that makes sense. So would I always provide a contract then, even if I send free products in exchange for content? I mean, I have actually done that in the past. So for example, like if it was like quite a valuable product, so I work with this cycling jersey company whose jerseys cost like £150, and they didn't want to send out the jerseys without any guarantee that someone would post. So in that instance, it was a very simple contract. It was literally just like, we are sending you this jersey, you will post about it and do a story about it, and unless you tell us otherwise, and if you don't do a story and don't do a post, you will return the product. And I sent that like as an attachment with the email before I sent out the product, and got people to sign it, and everyone did sign it in the end. So that did separate us from the time wasters, because if they wouldn't sign the agreement, then obviously I knew that they wouldn't take it seriously enough. So like a couple of people said they're not going to sign it, in which case I said, fine, that's good, we don't want the risks. It's better to make sure the client's happy that everyone's posted, because they don't want to waste their jersey, than take the risk. So yeah, if it's an expensive product, then I would provide a contract. But if it's like a lip gloss or a lipstick, I don't really think you need one, because you can write off the cost for that. What is the most important metric when analysing influencer success? Well, I mean, that depends what you have access to. Like, because the client, they will probably say like sales, but because we're working more with like, you know, PR, we're not maybe working directly with a brand, then, you know, for us, you know, it's reach, you know, like when you're doing it for like a newspaper, you always say, okay, reached such and such so many people, and it was engaged by this many people. So if you're doing it that way, you know, I don't really see why there has to be any different metrics to what you do for traditional media to what you do for influencer marketing, because otherwise you're making it more complicated for yourself, because not all reach ends in sales. But I do think that you're more likely to get a lot more visits to the website based on influencer marketing than you do from traditional media. So you can use that as a thing to highlight, because it will show you the value of the campaign. So it'll say, okay, so we got in the women's health, and we reached like such and such readers of the magazine. We reached 5,000 readers of the magazine, and then we did a campaign with like, we don't know how to visit the website, and you might look on Google Analytics, and they can only see that maybe like 50 people visit the website the day the magazine was published, and then a couple more visited it over the next few days. But when you do like a campaign, you can say, okay, we did a collaboration with this personal trainer, and on that day the website got like, you know, like 1,000 visitors. So then the brand can see that actually that is more valuable to them. But if you do it in sales, that's something you can't control, because people only buy something from websites. The website's easy to use, if it's easy to check out on. So that doesn't help you at all, because you are kind of like promising something that's not your job. So you have to deliver traffic to the website with influencer marketing campaigns. What happens then is not your problem, because you have done what you need to do. And if the website's not good, people aren't going to buy. So I think the important metric is website traffic, as well as reach and impressions and engagements. Because if people are engaged, they're more likely to go to the website anyway, because they've taken the effort to write a comment or like it. But put in how many people like saw it as well, if the influencer will share with that. And then how would I go about finding influencers in a niche industry like B2B engineering? Well, first I would probably start with, you know, like trade press. Are there any people that are always featured in the same trade press? Secondly, remember that influencers don't have to be on Instagram. They can be in LinkedIn. So like look for, if it is B2B, then look as LinkedIn as an influencer kind of like place to find influencers, because if you can find someone on LinkedIn that's well connected, then they can do the work for you. And then I would also look into like, you know, like blogs about the company, or do a Google search, but you're not necessarily going to find people on Instagram that are interested in B2B engineering. So it has to be people that you've interacted with before, you know about through company press, or you can find on LinkedIn. And if you can find them on LinkedIn, they're more likely to result in like decent traffic, because like on Instagram, you know, I don't think you're going to get much, you know, many people interacting, or many people like having a huge following. So it's better to stick with what you know, and think about who the celebrities in that industry are. So celebrities might be like other company owners, they might be like designers, or like engineers, or like people that have done like cool things within engineering, or it could even be like engineering like lecturers at universities, and just, you know, you have to think laterally. So like who would have the most influence in it? Like company directors are most likely to have a lot of influence. Company like people that, you know, people, engineers themselves who have won awards. So look at award ceremonies and find out like who won awards, and then target them, see if they would like recommend you. And then look at LinkedIn, because LinkedIn in B2B companies is probably like a lot better than Facebook and Instagram. If that makes sense.
Thank you, Zoe. We've just got one question in the chat as well.
Okay.
There were a few, but I think you've already answered the first two from Molly and Charlotte.
Okay, good.
But Charlotte had another question. She said that she's in hospitality. And she has a few influencers who she's invited and given a free experience to, but they've then posted negatively about it. So what would you recommend to do in that situation?
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? Like, why would anyone do that? Like, you know, sometimes what is the point? What are they getting out of it? That is bizarre. So I think when that means you have to be so much more careful about in advance, you know, like what you say to people before they take up the experience. So you can, you know, like when you're getting people into the venue, you would say, okay, so these are the terms and conditions, right? If you don't like it, don't post about it, right? We would rather no posts than a negative post. So lay out that clearly. And then say, if you do have problems and you don't want to post about it, we do understand, but just tell us why you're not posting about it, and we can sort that out, because we want to give everyone a good experience, and it helps us to improve if we know why we let someone down in a certain instance. So before you invite anyone in to give them some free product, definitely say, if you don't like about it, don't post about it, because nothing is better than minus one, you know? And then in the instance they have posted about it, I would appeal to their nice side and I would ask them to take it down. If, you know, like saying, okay, we want to resolve this with you. Tell us what you didn't like about it. It's really, really impacting our business because you've got this negative review up. Is there any chance you can take it down? Is there any chance you can come back? We want to give you a different experience. And if they, you know, if they say they can come back, they can have a better experience next time and replace that content. But like, just because they post about it negatively doesn't mean it has to stay up. Like, you can ask them to take it down. The worst they can say is no, but because it's, you know, it's not great for your business to have a bad review. So I think you should definitely ask for it to be taken down. And if they don't take it down, just think of other creative ways that you can get them to reverse that situation. So, you know, like it goes back to when I was in social journalism and like, you know, and then someone would write something bad about someone else and the PR would call you up and they'll be like, they're trying to do some deals with you. And they'll be like, okay, so this is a really bad piece of publicity for this client. How can I work with you to get better publicity? Do you want to come in for like, listen to their album? Do you want to do that? Do you want to do that? And if you keep like the conversation open, there are ways you can resolve it and get it sorted out. But definitely in future, say don't post about it if it's something wrong, and make it clear. Like, you know, like in a couple of times or 3 times when you're arranging for people to come in, if they don't like it, then I have to post about it. So it's clear in their head that they're only posting if they liked it, and they're doing you a service if they don't like it.
Perfect, thank you, Zoe. Thank you for everyone who asked questions, and thank you to Zoe for the really interesting presentation. We will be sending out the presentation slides and the recording to you later this week. So if you have any questions later on that you think of, please just get in touch and reply to our email. I'll also put our inquiries email address in the chat. If this webinar has kind of piqued your interest in PR and marketing, we offer lots of different qualifications in those areas. So again, if you are interested in those, the link is in the chat where you can look at our PR courses. Lots of you are already studying with us, and I hope you're finding the course interesting. I think that's everything for today. I'll just wait and see if any more questions come through. But I think you've done a brilliant job in answering all of those. Well done, Zoe. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, if anyone does think of any questions later on, please just drop us an email and we will be more than happy to help. But otherwise, thank you for joining today's webinar. I hope you all found it interesting and hope everyone has a lovely day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much.